Okay, guys, welcome back. Sorry about the delay. So, where we left off is we just finished the pirate stage and we have moved on to the ice stage. Now, we were told that here on the island is the ice key, however, there is no tournament this time for said ice key. So, what we actually need to do is come over here and talk to Tara. And we need to drop off our monsters here real quick. And we need to pick up one Mad Gopher. I recommend, since I have so many females, I'm going to grab a female one. And I need to pick up also the Army Ant that I also picked up during the game. Now these two are absolutely necessary. And this is why. So basically what you're going to have to do now is you're going to have to go and you're going to go talk to your dad here real quick. Beaver and help put up the bridge. It's a solid piece of work. The underground stable is next if you have any Mad Gophers. So you talk to him again, and you can pass him over the Mad Gopher. So you lose a Mad Gopher, yes. You do lose a Mad Gopher. And what's going to happen is he's going to say that he hit something hard, and it's a tiny metal. Now, you can do this in any order that you like, because the items you get are going to be the same no matter what. You're always going to get a tiny metal, and you're always going to get the ice key. Now, when you do this, I always like to say that it's just faster to put the Mad Gopher in first with your dad, because you want to really do this. So he says here you need an Army Ant. You're going to leave the Army Ant with him. And this is important because it's going to open up a new shopkeeper, and it's going to give you a magic key. And you get the ice key. So you obviously get the magic key. It's really nice. But that's not what's really important here today. So, yes, you got the ice key, and yes, we opened up the next level. But before, you were told that when you won the kids tournament, you would get access to a couple different things. The first one was the key evaluator, and the second one here is the starry shrine, which you can now actually access because there's not a line of people blocking the path after you beat the pirate stage. However, what I want to do right now, real quick... actually, no, I don't want to do that just yet. That's actually a mistake. I thought I was going to run another errand. I actually don't want to do that. What you want to do here is come in here just really quickly. And now I'm going to go over breeding. Breeding in this game is relatively simple. You just need a male and a female, just like in Pokemon. And so basically what happens is, unlike Pokemon, however, you're not going to get the same baby. So... this guy here is the monster breeder. So what you want to do is you're going to breed monsters here. And I'm going to choose to go with Aquahawk. And I am going to go with... oh boy. I'm going to go with my Beaver and get Bullbird. And it's going to tell you every time whether or not you've had a monster. That's kind of important, but not really. Only some monsters are going to be pretty much accessible for pretty much the majority of the game this way. But something to note is that monsters will always, always, always yield a better result. And I got really unlucky here. So yes, I'm going to take Miko with me just real quickly, but also I just realized I made a huge mistake, and that was to not use a male. So when you have females and males, order does matter in this game for a few monsters, but mostly in this part of the stage of the game, you don't really have anything that's going to really change anything. So what you really want to do is you really want to look out for, remember, if you have a lot of females, or if you have a lot of males, or if you have an even number, that's really the best thing, but I have a lot of females. So if I go with the males, I'm only going to get what type the male is. If I start off with a female, I'm going to get whatever that female type is. So for example, if I started with a Spooky, he's not level 10, so I can't breed him. Small thing to note. But if I start with a... let's see here. If I started with Curse Lamp here, she's female, I'm only going to get what's in the Curse Lamp family, which is material monsters. Same thing. It's going to be the same kind of idea every time. If you use a slime, you're only going to get slimes. If you use a plant monster here, you're only going to get plants. And that's it. But they're always going to be different. So if I were to use, let's say, the Draki and then the Cacti Ball, I'm going to get Florajay instead of whatever else it was. And let's see, I got these guys here. I'm going to get a Weed Bug if I do the Giant Worm and the Cacti Ball instead of the, I think it's the Flora Weed instead. And I'm just going to breed these guys. So what you want to do here is you want to breed as much as humanly possible. The reasoning for this is that you really need to get a jump start before you go onto the ice stage. By the time you get into the ice stage, you should have some monsters. You're not going to have too many. The good thing about this is that almost always are your bred monsters going to be stronger than the parents who bred it. And you can see how this might spiral out of control relatively quickly with near perfect stats, etc. like that. I'm going to go here with a picky real quick between my Draki and my Slime. They do all start out on level 1, but there's a +1 by their stats. And this, it's not going to be too apparent when you first start breeding, but it will be later on. And their stats in the beginning are always going to be really, really better than their parents. And they're going to be above average. So if I had a Picky compared to my Picky +1, my Picky +1 is always going to have better stats than the regular Picky. It's just how the breeding works in this game. Now, it doesn't look like I have any more level 10s or above. So these are the only 3 I can do right now. I have 2 birds here. I chose these 3 in particular because they have very low experience. Bugs in particular don't require a lot of experience to grow. But on top of that, if you have an egg and you need a certain type of gender, you can talk to this lady. If you evaluate an egg, then you're going to get the gender of the egg. Then if you don't like that gender, you can bless the egg and it will change the gender of the egg. Now, obviously, I need to up my my guys' levels really, really quickly. Obviously, I can't go back right now and go and take care of the stuff needed in the ice stage. You just can't with Slime, Hood Squid, and your relatively probably halfway decent Beaver. You just can't. It's just too high of a level. So you're just gonna run back into Oasis and train up these +1s for a while, for just a little bit. And this is what I mean when the grinding kind of starts. But you also get a lot of customization this way. You can now create your own monsters. You can have monsters that you had in the past if you like a particular set. Obviously, they don't have any skills, but I did 14 damage in 1 hit. That's a lot for a level 1 monster. Compared to what we did last time, which was around 6 or 5. So you can see the damage output has actually really changed relatively quickly, and the only thing I've done is bred them once. Now, near your more extensive breeding chains, you're going to end up at somewhere like +30. I can talk about that in more detail later on, if I were to load a different game that I have saved here. I could do that and go into, how extensive some of my breeding charts have gotten. But there's a really good website for that. And really all you have to look up is just Google this game and look up breeding charts. And I think it's the first link in the description. And it's by Wood US. And it just goes in their whole wiki about all the Dragon Warrior games and the Dragon Warrior spin-off games. I find them really good. They do a really good job on this game in particular when it comes to the breeding charts. They have some things that don't make all that too much sense. Like, there's some combos that they're missing, but for the most part, they're the easiest and fastest way to get certain monsters that you might want, or if you're like me, who wants, every monster. They're really good at getting it relatively quickly. And they give you a really direct route in order how to do that, usually within, the least amount of steps possible. The format's not as good, where you can just kind of like click a name, but all of them are there, and they're sorted by monster family. So if you want to, let's say, only do slimes, and you want the best slime in the game, I believe it's Grand Slime, you can look up the slime breeding chart and see what you're going to need. And this is why I do recommend playing it on emulator, because a lot of people, including myself, get really caught up in collecting certain monsters, kind of like the Pokemon's kind of catch 'em all kind of phase. And it really, really is a lot of fun to breed just different types of monsters and see what cool designs they drew out, or which ones are really, really cool, which ones you find out are not so good. Um, for example, you find out that, um, throughout the whole beginning of the game, the monsters that you were given are basic building blocks, and you really, really, really wish that they gave you something better, but at the same time, it's still a good starting point. As you can see, I had a lot of choices still to choose from, and I think this is the first time I've ever done this team in particular, where I actually have a Bullbird, a Picky, and this is the first time I've ever kept with a bug in a playthrough after the first stage, in particular. So, if you like bugs, for some weird reason, go right ahead. You can breed a bunch of bugs, and find out, what happens when you breed a bug with a bird, but what happens when you breed a bird with a bug? You're going to get something different. It's really interesting in that regard. And I'm going to go to Pirate real quick, because I want to up my experience. But like I said, you start out, right now, you start out with like +1s and maybe +2s by the end of the second grinding route, if you're lucky, right? But when you get to something like +10, or, +12, your monster's stats already start mostly at 100, once they become certain monsters. And that's really good. Being able to start at 100, you can go with a level 1 and go pretty much to, the last stage of the game at that point, and go, hey, look, my level 1 monsters can beat some of the random mobs at the last stage of the game, because that last stage of the game is really, really hard. Yeah. And that's what breeding does. It makes your monsters really, really powerful relatively quickly. So yes, you should really breed whenever you can get the chance. And it is really helpful, and it is worth your time. If you are stuck on like a certain area, breed. Just go and breed. It has absolutely no adverse effects unless you want a certain monster and you're breeding for completion. That's the only time when I can really say it actually will hurt you, because it's very, very difficult to control that at that point. So I'm just going to heal up here real quick. I think I have some herbs. Yeah, I do. Okay. But after that, it's really, really worth it, and it's worthwhile doing. A lot of people, if you were to look this game up, I guess, on, like, GameFAQs or whatever, the advice is always to, go into the 3rd level, gain some XP before you go and do this. No, after the pirate stage, you should almost always come in here and just breed at least a +1, because it'll be much easier to grind on the in the ice stage, and it's also going to help increase your XP produced by your monsters. Actually, I need to go heal up real quick and then it's going to really help grind up XP relatively quickly on your newer monsters that you're going to add, because after this stage, they're pretty much all level 10, but you have all these monsters that are like level 8 or level 7, like you probably saw beforehand. When I was trying to breed them all and they all weren't level 10, you're most likely going to have that at this point in the game. And so it is worthwhile breeding at least a new team of monsters to go and make the ice stage at least a little bit easier. Now, I'm already level 7 with these guys, and I haven't really done too much because they're fast growers. Birds and bugs are usually the faster growers, and it makes the game speed up a little bit quicker. at this stage. After this, you're not really going to want bugs too much until around the end of the game if you're going for 100% completion on your characters, and birds drop off somewhere mid-game after, the fourth stage of the game. Near the end of the game, birds kind of start dropping off, and their value slowly decreases. But you can finish the game with certain birds, and they are really, really powerful once you get near the end of their breeding chain as well. The birds have a great breeding chain, and it opens up a lot, and I mean a lot of possibilities, especially with spells and being able to get things done. They're probably one of the best in that regard. Insects are usually one of the worst offensively, and spell-wise, they're really good support creatures. They have a lot of things like the Rob Magic that you saw, Kazna Learn. They have a couple other things that are really, really decent as well. But after that, they're not really too useful. I don't really see them being amazing monsters. I don't see them being really amazing altogether. They have some really good spells, and yeah, it's every now and then, like, it's halfway decent. I'm going to pick up another Aqua Hawk here because I might as well, right? I just used one to breed my Bullbird, and they did a lot of damage to my level 9s relatively quickly. I wasn't really expecting that. But on the upside, however, my monsters are able to handle these Aqua Hawks, and it is really good in that regard. So, yeah, at level 9, my other monsters couldn't handle this, but because these guys are +1s, they can. And now they're past level 10, they're going to level 11, they're going to be, more stronger than they were before, than the other guys. And the best thing about breeding is that they start off with a wild of 0, so you can command these guys, and they're always going to listen to you. So you don't have to worry about feeding them meat or anything. So if we were to look at their stats just really quickly, their wild is still 0. All their stats are going to be higher relatively. And every time you breed a monster, those monsters have their own skills that they learn naturally, but they also inherit the parent skills. So, if I remember correctly here, who had Slash? Picky had Slash. So, she learned Fireball from Slash. Slash cannot learn, cannot learn those other moves. It can't learn Antidote, and it can't learn Rob Magic. And it can't learn Sap and Sleep. Those are Sap and Sleep are from Draki. Rob Magic, I believe, is from Picky. Antidote is also from Picky, and Fireball is from Slash. The Step Guard here is from, I believe, the Cacti Ball, and the Weedbug didn't learn Beast Cut from the Giant Worm yet, but he probably will somewhere down the line. And the Bullbird here, he learned Ice Bolt from the Beavern and the Aqua Hawk. I think the Aqua Hawk eventually learns Ice Bolt, but after that they all learn their own skills, and that's also a plus. So you get 3 monsters worth of skills in one monster, and that can be really, really useful. And that means you can control what your monsters learn. So, for example, all you have to do is keep the spell on the original breeding monsters. So what I mean by that is, if your let's say you have a slime and you have another monster, and your slime has the fireball ability, and you want to pass down the fireball ability, all you'd have to do is hold on to that slime and its fireball ability as one of its skills, and it will be passed down to the monster that you breed into with the other monster, whatever it is. And in that regard, it's very useful, and breeding is really, really good. So this has been just kind of like a real quick tutorial on how to breed. And I'm going to go back right now and probably do a little bit more, and then I'm going to do some more grinding, do a lot more breeding, and then I'm going to show you guys what happens after that and how quickly this can kind of help turn things into my favor. And I'm going to also open up a shortcut to the breeding center relatively quickly. Alright? And that'll be the last part of this video here. I'm just going to go back and open up a quick shortcut here. So what you want to do real quick is you want to come over here. And this boulder here has been blocking the way. Now, what we picked up in the pirate world was the ability to break boulders. And now, we can now come straight from out of here into the breeding zone. And you are going to use this a lot more than you think. If you really enjoy breeding, you're going to use it a lot more if you want to power through this game relatively quickly. That is probably the fastest route you need to open up immediately. Alright, so next time, I will finish breeding. I'm going to do some grinding relatively quickly, and then we're going to go on to the third stage, and after that, we'll go from there. Alright, until next time.